Oh, hey, buddy. Good to see you. Feel free to grab a chair and stick around for a bit. It's been a long week, but luckily things have finally calmed down. What do you think of the new TV? The repairman accidentally knocked over the old one, but luckily I found this one at a thrift store. The quality is actually a little better. I always try to thoroughly enjoy the games I acquire, and I play them at my own pace. I make mental notes of tasks in front of me, especially obtainable skins and cosmetics. I'm a vain person, what can I say? This normally ends with me 100% into game in a relaxed style. Once I do though, I end up dropping the game and moving on completely. Hogwarts Legacy was on my computer screen almost every day for over a month. And then once I finished the full experience, I uninstalled it. I mean, I got my money's worth, sure, but it's almost as if I sucked the full life force out of it. My preferred style of play doesn't match the current market. The mix of an everlong game and constant updates flood storefronts. Competitors rush to grab your attention without truly worrying if the current life of the game is even up to par. It's hard not to get the feeling that the game is never good at launch. It's only okay after 6 months. The bad taste you get is flooded away by the fear of missing out on core content 2 months down the line. I dislike saying it, but when a game feels feature complete, you almost feel like everyone involved should receive an award.
Got a job for you, 621.
Well, Oh, Walter, nice you stopped by. Hey buddy, I'll be right back. It's been 10 long years since an Armored Core game has come out. 15 if you're just a stan of 4 Answer. It's been so tough to try and avoid spoilers, but don't worry, I'll do the same for you. A lot of my favorite content creators have been speeding through the game, and their ACs look awesome. Luckily, the corner store has been my focal point these past few weeks. Unluckily for me, my air conditioning upstairs was busted, so even though I had the game pre-installed, I couldn't even play it. The last time I spent this long looking at a game I couldn't play was GTA San Andreas. My parents got it for me on Christmas in 2004, if you can believe it. I was so excited. The moment I went to pop it in my PS2, power went out. We had a huge snowstorm in our town, and as luck has it, someone crashed into local power lines. We didn't have power for over a week, since we lived in a rural part of town. I still remember how excited I was when the power finally came back on. I ran into the living room, popped in the disc, and fell into the city of San Andreas. I haven't had that feeling for a long time. If you aren't sure of the feeling I'm talking about, just YouTube Blastoise Kid on Christmas Day. I don't know, maybe it just comes with age. I'm not in school anymore. Bills flood my mailbox, and if I grab a blanket and lay on the couch, I'm out in 5 minutes. It may not seem fulfilling to some, but at the end of the day, I'm content with making you all smile when you come to the store. Fire's Rubicon made me feel like a kid again. Playing through the first mission felt like I was returning to Nexus or Last Raven. I wasn't focused on tasks or pursuing specific achievements. Heck, I didn't even care that I was so far behind compared to others. I just wanted to keep playing and enjoy the full experience. Sure, some things have changed, but the wings of a raven are still solid and true.
Balaam Group AC Squad Red Guns reporting for duty. Commence mission.
No, Michigan, please. No. Don't bring the red guns in here. Please. Last time they broke my... Armored Core has been one of the top 3 game series for me growing up. The other 2 being Monster Hunter and Fallout. While fighting giant monsters, building friendships, and making moral decisions were a staple of both, Armored Core had that extra layer I was always craving. Last Raven in particular was maybe the last time I felt truly in awe, as the ones around me crashed and burned due to my decisions. Memorable pilots were rebelling. Everyone was at odds, and to top it all off, the pulverizers were destroying everything in their path. AC6 almost feels like a sequel to it. Little is known about you, or rather 621, before being shot into Rubicon's atmosphere. The only sliver of info we learn is that we're an augmented human paying back Walter for our freedom. Augmented humans, also known as Human Plus, are pilots who are cybernetically meshed with their ACs to improve performance. This can involve pieces of their skeletal, nervous, and muscular systems being modified or outright changed. Regardless of what happened before the landing, we are Walter's pawns until he gets what he wants. From there, we race across Rubicon, fighting the Liberation Front and working between Arquebus and Balaam. Every mission from start to finish is packed with cannon fodder and other named heroes to combat and overcome. The missions are short, but I've never been bored. Even though I beat the game 3 times in total, I still want to go back and enjoy all of it all over again. Especially trying new builds against a Da-Funk student. That poor kid. If you aren't familiar with the Armored Core games, here's how it all works. You customize your mech 2 hours at a time whenever you go back to the menu screen. You look at 2 pages of stats to improve defense, speed, energy levels, and you switch the type of legs from bipedal, reverse joint, tank, or tetrapods, and then wreak havoc in missions that last from a minute or two to around 5 minutes. Repeat until you think you're badass and try PvP until a double spamming shotgun shreds you in seconds. Overall, I love it. It may sound like a drag, but there's always something behind that next mission. You'll begin to mix friend and foe, you acquire new gear, and want to experiment. Your experiment fails miserably, and you just say, fuck you, spider legs, and throw on the tankiest build you can. Your next playthrough, you come back and kick his ass with nothing but the pile driver. When an explosion goes off and the slow motion takes effect, you can't help but feel hype. I was scrolling through Twitter one day, and Sunny popped up. Normally, I try to avoid all spoilers, but Sunny Legend has a way of making the simplest of fights look so flashy and classy. He shredded Balteus like he was regular cannon fodder. The missiles flew past, he dashed in like it was a choreographed dance. Balteus was no more in seconds. The best part about all of it is how it feels when it clicks. Suddenly you aren't flustered about the bosses in front of you. It's a rhythm game, and they're just another chord in the song. The other fascination comes from the customization itself. Weapons and armor aren't necessarily terrible or overpowered. They're just different playstyles.
I represent the Rubicon Liberation Front. Our request is simple.
Please read the sign. No solicitation, please. The only real hurdle to overcome is the new stagger system. Overall, I'm a big fan. Basically, when an enemy takes enough damage in a given time, they're staggered and stop moving for a second or two. This may not sound like a lot of time, but 2 back-mounted songbirds can decimate lightweight and middleweight builds in that small window. If you aren't doing enough damage in a given amount of time, you're only really leaving yourself open for failure. You can get staggered just as easily, if not easier. Going against any boss in the later levels is basically failure if you mess up. There are some notable exceptions to this, like stun guns or flamethrowers. These provide a debuff. You can have a pulse shield, but that's only on your left shoulder. You can have melee weapons, but it's only on your left arm. But you can experiment. So for example, you could have a fast charging melee in your left arm, and then switch it out with your left shoulder or a pile bunker, and just decimate your enemy when they're stunned. The other fun melee is actually overboosting into a kick. Who would have thought to add a kick mechanic to Armored Core? Whoever it was, give them a raise, because kicking with reverse joint leads to jump kicking the crap out of the enemy. And your weight also determines the power of that kick. We sadly do not have weapon arms this time around. These were special arms that incorporated weapons into them. So like bazooka arms or sword arms like in Verdict Day. I used to love the A11 Vendetta arms. I would just dash my opponents and smash them with physical blows. No shots, just hands. It's really odd that more physical weapons and shields weren't utilized in Rubicon. Most are just like a pulse style. After Dark Souls and Elden Ring, you'd think we have like a giant double sword requiring both arms, or a giant steel shield to block tougher attacks. I get that they're treating this like a spiritual sequel to older games, but I feel like it could just be so much more. The other part of the stagger system is that it makes middleweight and heavyweight builds finally viable. In 4 Answer, for example, heavyweight mechs were just atrocious. Enemies would just fly around you, tanking some hits, and just decimate you with speed. Now a sneeze can leave them vulnerable. It finally feels like a fair fight. I love it. Sure, tank builds can be overcome with distance and speed, but the revamped lock-on system works in both parties' favors. In older games, specifically 3rd gen, you were circling the arena, waiting to see your opponent's big toe randomly in the corner of the screen. You'd pray for a hit, and then repeat. Later games use a quick turn feature, but keeping line of sight was more difficult because you flied faster and faster. The new lock-on system works to keep line of sight. For controller players, just click in the analog stick, and you won't have to aim if the enemy's close enough. You may not be as accurate, but timed attacks and proper map orientation can easily fix this. For bigger bosses with multiple weak spots, a controller player can just lock onto the weak spot and not even use the right stick. This may sound like a handicap, but these enemies are still no joke. Speed is the only win-win. You can truly experiment. You may have noticed that I specifically called out controller players. The lock-on system itself is iffy if you're using a mouse and keyboard. If you move a little off with your mouse, you can lose lock-on capability. I played on controller since that's what I'm used to from the PS2 and 360 days, but I prefer mouse and keyboard for most games overall. I'm not sure if it's a bug or meant to be like this, but the current lock-on system just doesn't feel as useful. You'll find yourself switching off of it just by moving your mouse slightly. But you can still 180 with the flick of your wrist, so take that as you may. Later on, you can use core expansions acquired from OS tuning. You can use past features like Assault Armor from 4 Answer to create energy explosions, but you don't need to equip specific parts to use them like past games. Just a chip. You can also use expansions like Terminal Armor to save yourself from dying to one-shot moves from tough bosses. It may not have lore tied behind it like 4th gen, but it still feels meaningful and necessary.
You got lucky, Merc. So, you got a nice punch in. Go buy a lottery ticket.
Dude, Iguazu, let it go. You literally tried to come in here with your sister's ID yesterday. I can't sell you alcohol. The story missions in AC6 are pretty cut and dry, at first glance. You can handle the main objective, defeat some hidden enemies for bonus rewards, find a hidden cache or two, and then proceed to the main event. First, and in my opinion, needed addition is the supply drone, as well as its checkpoint system. The drone provides longer mission structures compared to older games. When you use it, you get a checkpoint for that mission. Double miniguns at 30% ammo, no worries, supply drone incoming. Just fight off 2 pilots and now you're coming up to a boss. Here's 3 repair kits. It may come off as necessary for new players, but these longer missions can lead to more experimentation, unless, how could I prepare for this? If you're careful with your ammo and AP, you can make it through it. But that supply drone gives the extra little reassurance you may need. Repair kits are basically health items for your mech. You can upgrade them through OS tuning, but these won't save bad players. You're only allowed 3 at a time, so if you have 2, then come across a supply drone, you'll only have 3 max. Some older players dislike this, but overall, I feel like this was needed. Riskier and more adventurous play is a step in the right direction, especially with the bonuses spread across the map. The mission briefings are a little more clear this time around. I mean, if it's unknown territory, it's generally like a war of attrition. When unknown, I just had a specific loadout of just guns blazing. I definitely get the vibe of Dark Souls when it comes to boss battles though. As soon as I see a supply cache drop in, I think, oh no, there's a boss right behind this door. It's the same as seeing a fog wall in front of me. As soon as I walk through it, the music's just gonna blast and that boss is gonna charge right at me. The story itself starts out a little confusing and low until chapter 3. You aren't given much backstory and the main enemy at a time is small compared to the rest of the planet. It isn't until you meet air that the story begins to grip your attention. Once you hit that stride though, the game picks up, and you'll soon be embarking on crazy adventures and fighting off enemies of all sizes. I have a decent PC, 2080's graphics card, so nothing too special. I played on high with 120 FPS no problem. I still distinctly remember fighting fronts in For Answer and watching my frames decimate for minutes on end. None of these issues were present in 6. I haven't even had one bug. Also, for the record, no lag in PvP, even when I played globally. The soundtrack this time around hasn't felt that high and intense. Maybe it's because I was focused on the awesome one-liners and comms with other pilots, but there were really only 2 occasions later on where I can remember the track blasting as I fought for my life. Some key tracks were Unbreakable, Contact with You, Verification, Steel Haze, and of course, Stargazer. Completing all the way through just for that one song, so fucking worth it. It felt like a true homage to 90s anime, and especially the series as a whole. I meant what I said though, buddy. The people we meet this time around are so compelling. Without the actors bringing their all, it could have just fallen to the side, but they truly put their soul into their voice work. It changed the game from just another action game to like a AAA anime. I Won't Miss is the line that every single person who played this game is gonna remember for the rest of their lives. Right when he says it, and then the silence, and then the shot, fucking amazing. Probably one of the most badass moments I've ever seen in my fucking life. Maps feel around the same size as the ones in For Answer, which sounds bad because they are barren, but this falls in favor of AC6. There's tight corridors, vertical paths, additional logs and hidden caches, but space to maneuver and even flank at times. There are a handful of cases where you feel locked into a corner, but it's meant to feel like that due to the circumstances. Camera isn't hindered and you can focus on the enemy at hand. If I had a nag on anything in AC6, it honestly might be the same things I love. This is a classic retelling of an Armored Core game, but I feel like they played it like a little too safe. I mean, it may sound weird, but bear with me. Hopefully it'll make sense. In the middle of the game, there is a mission where you take an elevator to the top of the structure. You then fly past these satellite lasers in the sky. Tankier builds feel out of the question, so you rely on something faster. There's a hidden path to use to avoid the laser fire, but we're just not going to focus on that for this example. You make it to the flag location and a supply drone is available. It's an automatic red flag that something's waiting for you once you use that checkpoint. The surprise of the moment's gone because you've already been accustomed to drones being a checkpoint prior to a boss encounter. You aren't prepared for this boss because it wasn't in the briefing. You can't change your loadout even though you just got a full resupply from the drone. You can, however, change your assembly once you die to whatever is beyond that checkpoint. Why not allow the checkpoint to be prior to the supply drone? You can then make the supply drone a mini assembly for your AC. Currently, you have to wait for the screen to go black, someone to say a sassy remark about your loss, and if you accidentally click restart from checkpoint, you won't be able to make any changes until you die again. The old gen's main argument about repair kits was that it feels out of universe, like a random kit can just heal your damage. The current plan of assembly after death feels tacked on just as much. Like when you die, you could just change your loadout. For a lore accurate game, these two are just so off-putting. I mean, let me remind you, I love these additions, but I just wish it was shown off like in world. Like if you can use a repair kit, why can't your enemies? Well, minus you know who, but that's spoiler territory. The other part of the mission structure is the reliance on only one supply drone. If there was one at like the halfway mark and then one near the end, you could experiment as to when you'd come across a boss or another pilot. This could allow for longer missions with more variety and experimentation with our expectations. I believe there's only one bigger boss that didn't take place at the end of a mission. but I wouldn't really classify it as a boss, just like a 2-mile obstacle all the way down below you. These issues tend to go away once you embark on a new game plus. You know what to expect and prepare for. Well, for the most time anyways. These issues stem from your first playthrough, your first battle with the hidden foe. Honestly though, these are really just nitpicks. Just me trying to find something, anything to judge. Armored Core 6 is way ahead of any other games I can think of off the top of my head. Generally, when I have aggravations, they tend to become more and more annoying over time. Imagine Preston saying another settlement needs your help, or the 3 or 4 loading screens anytime you want to go to a new planet in Starfield. At first, you brush it off because it's new, cool, and exciting, but 3 days later, you're pulling your hair out. These are just changes that might be cool to see in the next game.
Leave it to Invincible Rummy to show our guest a good time.
Rummy, I swear if you bring that chainsaw in here again, I'm gonna kill you. The other FromSoft staple is the storytelling. Compared to past Armored Core games, this falls in line with the same experience, but I just wish there was more. Literally everyone on Reddit and YouTube is saying, I'm just waiting for Vodsy to make a new video. I mean, there's logs, new story plus to dive into, but it still feels like there's gaps in the story. Like one playthrough, I was like, oh, I didn't see what happened to X, or oh, I wonder what's going on with this location since I wasn't a part of it. Maybe FromSoft wanted to push us for multiple endings, but I just wish we had like a simplified way of seeing it all through. Like you completed ending A, and you were able to see a timeline of the events. And if you missed like a log on chapter 3, mission 2, you would have a gap in the timeline. It wouldn't affect your ending, but you wouldn't know every single detail. You need to find the logs. Maybe like a diorama, but for the story. The other aspect of having like a diorama would be like the status of other AC pilots. This time around they crash and their AC is in a down state. Some people scream and I'm pretty sure they're dead, while others just kind of cut out. And then the AC still sits in a down state, like the ones that are dead. I'm left overall confused as a difference. I mean, maybe I'm not looking into this as much as in the past. I mean, I am handling my own business, trying to stay awake long enough to beat a few missions, but I just wish we had like the status of them at the end of the day. Like Pilot X battled you in chapter 3 and now it's dead. Maybe if someone comes back later under a new identity or mech, it would be a cooler surprise. When you first start the game, your main objective is to find a mercenary card off a downed AC. Some pilots are labeled as killed in action and others are labeled as missing. It'd be nice to see the ranking of all pilots and then their current status in that game's storyline. This way, if you fight someone in the arena that you don't recognize, you could look and see, oh, that's because they're already dead in this playthrough. The customization feels like Animal Crossing. This may sound goofy, but you can create awesome emblems and decals in-game. The coolest part with your creation is that you could save it, get a code, and send that code to your friends so they can match. You can also save decals and emblems from the community and online just like you could in New Horizons. It brings a whole new life to customization, though it's not as easy as I thought it'd be. Playing on PC, I can't use my mouse the way I would on something like Microsoft Paint. You can make your own Gundam, Evangelion unit, or even some rainbow abomination in the story, and also use that in PvP. Multiplayer has been so much fun. I mean, I haven't gone like 72-3 or anything, but I've had some close wins and losses. I love being able to spectate some games in bigger lobbies, but honestly, I just can't sink the feeling that multiplayer isn't gonna hold up for maybe 6 or 7 months down the line. As it stands right now, we have 1v1 and 3v3 lobbies. The singles result in someone crashing, then the round is over. The 3v3 lobbies can be more like team deathmatch, which are fun this time around. The maps are locations throughout the story, most notably where boss battles took place. You don't have a ranking, and your identity online is left to your emblem, pilot name, and mech name. In Verdict Day, There was a cool system where different corporations controlled land based on the amount of wins and losses. It's awesome on paper, but 5th gen isn't regarded as a highlight of the series, and it is generally only left to the dark, deep corridors of Discord. PvP in 6 is fun, but I'm not sure where it's going to lead to. You can rematch players and switch up builds between matches, but I've noticed if I shred my opponent and their party leader, I'm going to get kicked from the lobby. Different styles of play are either really wheelchair miniguns or double shotguns. Maybe some balancing down the line will be made. I mean, they already made some slight changes to Balteus, specific guns, and other encounters, but we don't know those specifics. Adjustments are normally not the case for FromSoft, but as it stands, I'm a big fan. This has been the most fun in Armored Core multiplayer I think I've ever had. And this is coming from someone who used to watch clan battles in 4 Answer. I just wish I could see like the top ranking players, see who's currently online, and watch battles whenever I want in-game. It'd be cool to see custom events incorporated as well. I've seen some tournaments online using only character loadouts, but in-game incorporations would be fun. Maybe in the future FromSoft could use events to provide new weapons and armor. I mean, that could help new players, but with so many live service games excelling at this, I'm not sure how long newcomers are going to stay. Rubicon has lit a fire in the community. The best part is it's exactly what I hoped for when we last talked about 4 Answer. FromSoft fans have finally taken a look back into the mech world, and the awesome creations are finally taking hold of the ones cursed and tarnished. I love the story, mission structure, experimentation, customization, and multiplayer. Looking back and watching old AC trailers, it's awesome to know that we can actually play just like that, if not better now. The boost smashing through hordes of enemies, impact of our attacks, staggering our opponents, one-off lines and anime level battles. This is what it's always been about. Dreams really do come true, buddy.
You need rest.
Oh gosh, I just saw the time. Be sure to take a snack before you go, and I can't wait to see you on the grounds of Rubicon once again. Remember, forged in fire, we stand as one. See you next time, Virtuafriend.